this sport is just like it's an important family member to me. I've walked alongside it my entire life, and I will to the day I die. So trying to tie that up in a neat bow is really hard, but hopefully you get a sense of just how much I care for it. You're asking an Englishman when he was introduced to the sport. I mean, we're born with it, right? We come out with boots on and everything. Um, I guess my earliest memories were of playing. Probably I must have been about probably 4 or 5 years old at the time, but even I still even remember those. They're quite vivid even still to this day. And then I remember I'm a Nottingham Forest supporter, so I can certainly talk about how I became attached to that team because I'm not from Nottingham. I'm actually from Oxford originally,
Okay.
and I do remember going to watch Oxford United back at the old Manor Ground in their heyday when they made it to the Milk Cup final, which was kind of remarkable for a team of that size. But I remember going to live games with my grandfather and my uncle at Oxford, but all the while feeling a little treacherous because I was a Nottingham Forest fan. And it sounds weird because I was only 6 at the time, and maybe people won't believe this, but I promise this is true. I remember seeing Brian Clough on TV. I don't know what the show was. I don't know if it was Parkinson or if it was just some post game interview or what it was. But I remember him and I remember how bombastic he was and how confident he was. And, it was borderline arrogance. So I wasn't borderline arrogance. It was full on with Cluffy. And I just remember thinking, wow, who is this guy? And it was a combination of things. It was the way they played, it was the kits they wore, and it was Cluffy. And so I literally just picked them out of the blue. And that was the first year they happened to go on to win the European Cup for the first time. I love to write. I love to be challenged with finding new and creative ways to describe what's happening and to capture emotion, right? And to be able to transport the reader back to that game or to the Switchbacks final, like the article I wrote for the Colorado Springs Independent, just immediately following that final. I just enjoy that challenge so much, and I don't think, as weird as it sounds, because like I'm speaking right now, you're hearing my voice. So, when I say writing, I think is the best way to capture your voice. That seems kind of odd because it's the only medium that doesn't involve like audio, right? But
Right.
it is like I think it is the most I don't know. I keep going back to that word authentic, but the most authentic way to capture your voice as a sports communicator. Thing that struck me was just how much singing there is, right? Singing and drumming and flares and flags and all the things. And that's not what we do in England. It just isn't. Like in England, we tend to sing for purpose, right? There's something that happens in the game that inspires a song. A player does something and their song comes out, or somebody gets fouled and, a song comes out, or the referee does something that warrants a little abuse. So the whole idea of from first whistle to laugh, this kind of rhythmic, continuous playing of music, it really bothered me. Like the energy was amazing, but it bothered me because I'm like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be responding to the game. This isn't supposed to be a 90-minute concert. But I've come to appreciate it. And what I certainly appreciate is the capos and all of those guys, banging the drums and playing the horns and just the energy and the commitment they have to kind of keeping the noise up and trying to keep the whole stadium engaged. And I'm glad now that I've kind of thawed on my Euro snobbing and can appreciate that the way we fan in England is great. And the way we fan in the States is great. Totally different, both awesome. When I was playing in England years ago, I think I don't know, 16 or 17 at the time, I joined a men's team. And one of my friends from school was part of the team. He invited me along. And I remember being really nervous and thinking, oh God, I got to show up. Like these are men, and here I am, 17, and I need to contribute to this game and do something and earn my, earn my spurs, as it were. And I remember going out there running around like a crazy person, like covering every blade of grass 3 times. I'm your Roy Keane type player, I'm actually, you know what? I'm your Roy Kent type player. I should have worn the shirt. I do have a Roy Kent shirt. That'll be one of the photos I send you. But I covered every blade of grass 3 times, and I ran like a madman. I got stuck in on my tackles and didn't shirk, and just tried to contribute. And at the end of the game, one of the players said, "Wow, you out there! It was like watching the Tasmanian Devil." And so I immediately got the nickname Taz, and that has followed. So that was 17. I'm now 50 something. That nickname has followed me from 17 all the way through playing football in the UK, crossing the ocean, right? Which obviously then when it got here and people said, what's your name? I was the one that said I'm Taz because I just gotten so used to hearing it on the field that the idea of calling me Mark, like you'll never get the ball from me because it wouldn't even register right on a football field. And so I've just been Taz for so long. And so when people meet me here in town at a game I'm commentating at or down the pub watching, an England match or something, they know me as Taz. I get introduced as Taz. I remember when I was in England, that guy who invited me to play in the football team, I've known their family for forever. Like her mum was at my christening. And I remember going around his house to pick him up for a game, and his mum opened the door and she's like, "Oh, morning, Taz." Like, this is a woman who's like best friends with my mum, who's known me from since I was a nipper. I'm Mark. But when she opened the door, going to pick up her son to go to a football match, I was Taz, right? So I don't know that I can give you a more accurate kind of summation of how indelibly this game is, in my DNA.